Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is Mercedes Lilienthal. And Mercedes and I had a conversation quite a number of years ago, Mercedes. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but I know things have changed and it's 2025. And so we need to catch up with you and see what you're up to. So first, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll find out how you got interested in motorsports.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure. A little bit about myself. I'm a German-American citizen. Parents immigrated from Germany, not knowing a word of English. And I was basically born and raised in Wisconsin, in a very, very small town in central Wisconsin. I went to school actually for interior design and fine art and did that for nearly 20 years before I left my career. That was a good career, but left that career in 2018 and basically went full-time into words and cars. I live with my husband of just over 20 years married, believe it or not. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
This last year. Thank you. I live with my husband in Oregon, and we actually don't have any pets. We had two cats that hated each other for like 20 years or so. But they basically have passed on and went into kitty heaven, or heck, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because they were little tyrants at times. But other than that, we travel quite a bit. So.
Okay. Sounds good. So interior design, that sounds like a kind of a fun job, I watch HGTV, so
Yeah.
when I'm not, it's on. I don't watch it 100%, but I usually have TV on when I'm working or doing stuff, and then I always watch the end because I want to see the finished product.
Right. Yeah. And HGTV is really great for showing the progression of things.
Yeah.
I had a lot of different experiences when I was in interior design, including layoffs, because that I didn't know at college during that time that it was very much tied to the market. So if the market really took a nosedive, so did a lot of our jobs. It wasn't based on talent. It wasn't based on anything. It was just literally purely budget. But I worked in the commercial industry, so the commercial interior design. I did a lot of retail and sustainable work in my earlier 2000s. A lot of tenant improvement, or TI work, which basically means offices, remodels, new construction, all that type of stuff. I did some hospitality, some healthcare, some government, all that type of thing. But it was with a couple of different companies. Some, starting of course in the Midwest and Wisconsin. Some well-known brands. Here I go with my head thinking cars again. Well-known firms that are in Minneapolis. Shea Architects was my second internship. Then we moved out here in 2006 to Oregon, and the rest of my jobs were, large, well-known architecture firm called, at the time it was Ankren Moyson Associated Architects in Portland, and then from there stemmed to a smaller firm doing a lot of tenant improvement work, a lot of travel, and then I flipped over to the facilities side. So That's interesting because that's more in-house. I was a contractor, but my last position before I flipped full-time freelance was at Nike World Headquarters, because Nike's based out here. And I was a facilities manager for the CAD CAFM team, not to nerd jack this whole conversation, but I am. And basically what that meant is I managed a small group of people that basically managed all of the drawings and the teams, the drawings that moved as far as if it was a leased building, an owned building, new construction, demolition, it basically kept all of those drawings in that system up to date. So that was a pretty good
Okay.
job.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, working at Nike World headquarters at that time,
Yeah.
that was 2016 through 18, maybe. I was there for the last few years before I switched my career, and yeah, it was pretty insane being there and literally having to do site visits in brand new buildings, or seeing,
Hmm.
oh, you're walking past visual merchandising, or you're walking past the shoe design, or these famous people that are there. It was
Right.
pretty wicked.
Yeah, I guess so. Wow. And then you decided to change jobs. So tell me about that. What brought that on?
You know, I say in life that nothing's permanent, and you can always try something different. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back.
Hmm.
I think after 20 years, I felt like I needed to be at a certain point in my career, and I felt like I wasn't really getting it and getting a lot of satisfaction in that right. Plus, after multiple layoffs, both Andy and I, my husband Andy, and I had gotten laid off for a long while in 2008, when basically a lot of people got laid
Hmm.
off. I mean, heck, we had a barbecue over at our house, and I think we had 14 or 15 people, and I think there were only one or two employed because everybody else was laid off. And we said, you know what, we have to do something good. We got to do something uplifting. And it was all industries. It wasn't just my industry.
Right. It was
It
the
was pretty
economy.
eye-opening. Pardon?
It was the economy at the
Oh
time.
yeah, it was the economy. But I mean, so we were laid off, I think, from 2008 to I was about maybe 2010. And then I got a job as an energy efficiency rep, where I traveled all over the place to different retail stores, educating staff, and putting up signage and everything about the new programs that are out, all that type of thing. But I felt like I needed to change. And I loved what I was doing. I loved the people. There's so many passionate people, architects, general contractors, MEP, you name it. There's everybody, other designers, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled to the core. I always was a gearhead through and through. One of the females that are out there that always loved cars. In addition to me having Barbies, I had Hot Wheels, right? And at the time, I didn't have any association of scale, so it was like the Barbies are right there with the Hot Wheels. So I loved cars. My dad was a welder, fabricator, and blacksmith, and then he and my mom basically opened up a small shop eventually, after living in Chicago for many years. Opened up a small shop, and he always was working on cars, whether they're Mercedes or Volkswagens or things like that. So I just was always around it, always around the welding part of it. Was a shop kid, and at home helped him hold the flashlight, helped him with a little tiny toothpick, with rock chips and all that type of stuff with the paint. And I just was in it. I was immersed in it. And so, we had some long conversations, and I was always good at writing too. That was another point to make. Did really well in writing, which is interesting because my parents never really knew any English. So I grew
Yeah.
up bilingual, but more German than English. And just loved essays, loved the storytelling aspect of it, and just did good. And Andy and I had a couple of frank conversations. And we said, well, he's got all the benefits, or you can have all the benefits. And if we were to do it, maybe I can just switch to freelance full time and see if we can make it work. And here I am.
Yeah. And, leap of faith, right?
Oh, complete leap of faith. I mean, you basically went from a very, very good income and full benefits and, vacation and sick pay and all that type of stuff to zero, like zero. So that that was eye opening, and I'm so grateful to Andy, my husband, to have the benefits and being able to carry us on and support me with that change, because it was a really big deal. It was very scary. It still is sometimes,
Sure.
how many years later after 2018, because you never know where your next dollar is going to come from.
Mm-mm.
But I can tell you that, now we're both freelance. Now we've been able to save up enough and make things work, that Andy left his job. Let's see, it was a year and a half ago about. So in 2023, in June, I think it was. So we are now doing this, and we're doing this full time. So there literally is no safety net. So, we're on the exchange, thankfully for that, for health insurance. But, if we get sick, well, we're time out. There's no sick pay. Uh,
Right.
but for me, having the flexibility to go and take a trip, like for instance, we did a couple of road rallies this year, and one of the road rallies was over in Germany, starting in Germany, and did 9 countries for 16 days, and it went all around the Baltic Sea. But then we also visited family over there. We were gone for about 5 weeks, and we
Wow.
worked a little bit here and there. But who else can allow you to do that and then do another trip where we had another rally, the Alcan 5000 rally, that was early in the year. And I think we took off, what, 2.5 weeks or so. We're visiting family back in the Midwest to help them out and be with them. And we work along the way. You know, in the US, you don't get that opportunity. Very little, I should say, rather. So freelance just really fits for us.
Well, you can do it in the US, but you can't be working for a company. They're not going to do that. You
Yeah,
have
right.
to be
Right.
on your own and make your own schedule, or that's not going to work. That's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, I had jobs where you had to work 1 year before you can got 1 week of vacation. So you had literally nothing. So, you know, that of course was back in the day, but I think Andy, when he left his job, he had 3 weeks, I believe, which was a lot. And
Yeah.
he was off and on there for, I think, 12 or 13 years for three
Hmm.
weeks. So,
Yeah.
you know, and I look at my sister and they're like, oh, we've got like 6 weeks off every year. And even people that work at retail, it's,
Yeah.
you know, I wish things would change here. They just wouldn't. You know,
Right.
every time when, not every time, but there were times where things were really busy and I had a scheduled vacation, for instance. I was so fearful of losing my job because I was taking a rightful vacation.
Yeah. Isn't that sad?
So yeah, it is. It is because people need to be mentally and physically healthy. And part of that is a break from work. It just took me a long time to realize it. So now I sit in front of a computer still working.
Yeah,
You know,
but you can
always
you
great,
can
but it's
get
different.
the thing is you can get up when you feel like you need a break, you can get it
Yeah.
without feeling guilty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, my commute's not an hour anymore. My commute is about 60 feet to the kitchen. And I can
Yes.
have as much coffee as I want. And if we need to go grocery shopping or do laundry in the middle of the day, we can.
Right.
Um, you know, so that ultimate flexibility and the opportunity to go places and see things and be with each other, because he now does it as well. It's great. It
Yeah.
feeds my soul in a way, and it really fulfills me. And I've had some incredible opportunities and incredible people to work with in auto manufacturers doing some insane things that I never thought I'd ever do. And I'd never be able to get that previously. So I'm very
Well,
grateful.
tell us about it. Tell us what exactly what do you do, and
Mhm.
what are some of those opportunities you've had? Share some of that.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Um, so I'm a freelance automotive journalist. I also write about different things. So, for instance, my latest article for the New York Times, which is one of my outlets I contribute to, is on coffee shops and those coffee shop owners that don't even have college degrees. So I don't only necessarily write about cars, but a good bit
Right.
of it's writing about cars. So, in addition to automotive journalism, along with my husband, which does the same exact thing, we also have our own company, Consulting, which is
Hmm.
PR and marketing. And most of that is automotive minded. So we're both freelancers, but we also are feature editors at OVR magazine,
Okay, and what is that? OVR.
Outdoor Vehicle Recreation. So
Okay.
OVR magazine. And
All right.
for those people that might not have heard of OVR magazine, it's a very, very high quality print publication, as well as online at ovrmag.com. And they are a newer publication, but there's a lot of veterans that are behind it. There are people from Tread Magazine, there are people from Motor Trend,
Oh
from
yeah.
Four Wheeler. I mean, us that have been in the industry for a while now. You know, especially Andy, my husband. He worked at a company that made winches and aftermarket truck accessories for off roading. So, you know, he's been in that part of an industry doing PR and blogging and everything since, 2006 is when he
Wow.
started. Previously for him, he was in the magazine world in Wisconsin for a company called Kalmbach Publication, but he worked for Scale Auto Magazine, and then he worked for Model Retailer, which was a B2B publication. And so he's been in the industry forever for cars. Then I just decided to dive in 2018 for myself for freelance. But some of the opportunities have been absolutely amazing. I tell people now, because I've learned it, that you can really try and try so hard for something, and that energy will help carry you forward to have a good chance in getting it.
Mhm.
It took me years to get into the New York Times, for instance. I was one of their Wheels contributors, and now the Wheels section sadly has shut down. But I just recently, gosh, I think that was in late 2022. But I just recently had my latest article for personal finance that just went in. That was a coffee shops article. I never thought in a million years that little old me that came from family that was, ESL essentially, English as a second language, coming from Germany, not knowing a word, that I'd
Right.
be writing first generation. I'd be writing for the New York Times, for instance.
Exactly.
And also a female in the industry. There's a lot of people that now are female in the industry. There's more and more
Hmm.
journalists, which I absolutely applaud. I absolutely love, but we're still the minority.
Sure.
For me, having bylines in publications like what was Autoblog, now they just changed over, but Autoblog, Car and Driver, OVR magazine, the list can go on and on. um,
Hmm.
so people can check out my LinkedIn for a full list of everything. But it just, for me, I have pinch me moments because not only that, but we've been able to partner with some incredible auto manufacturers for some of these rallies, whether they're off-road
Yeah.
competitions, on-road, with my husband, with another woman, Emily Winslow. Hello, Emily. She's amazing, for a competition called the Rebel Rally.
Yep.
Uh, you know, again, we it's the traveling aspect, it's the being together, pushing yourself to do new things, and if you
Hmm.
fail along the way, you learn. And it
Yes.
took me forever to learn that last part, that
Yeah.
if you get uncomfortable, put yourself out there. Heck, I fail almost every day, but you learn, and you just have to keep that mojo going. You just have to keep that energy going.
Yeah, for sure. And Mercedes, I just when I am sitting here and we're, we can see each other. If you're watching YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm saying about. And if you're listening, you can't maybe see the joy in her face, but you can hear it in her voice. And you don't it's hard to explain to somebody how, as an interviewer and I'm talking to someone, it's so easy to pick up on, are they really passionate, and how authentic are they being or not. And the joy when you talk about what you're doing, and the smile on your face tells everything about how you feel about what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's there's the flip side of what I do. I love what I do. Andy does as well, but there are a lot of challenges that come with it. You don't know what you're doing from one day to the next. You don't know when the
Yeah.
next dollar will ever come in. You have outlets that dry up. The automotive industry right now, as far as magazines and publications, is I don't want to say in a lot of trouble, but it's in a lot of peril right now.
Yeah.
So you have outlets that dry up. You have outlets that move overseas, or AI is taking some of it over, or all
Sure.
of the above. We've been in a lot of transition, and you have to be okay, or you have to learn to be okay
Yeah.
with the constant fluctuation of stresses that can bring. Because a steady, normal, I don't want to say normal because nothing's really normal, but a steady professional job like what we had, you had other stresses, but you knew you're going to get paid. You knew that you're going to have your benefits. You knew you're going to
Yeah.
have sick pay, your vacation, this and that, and long-term benefits for retirement. Even, like, for
Right.
instance, we have to pay ourselves for retirement.
and
So,
now and now it's one day to the next. And
mhm.
some people can't handle that. I wouldn't be very good at that.
No, and I can tell you right now, if somebody were to tell me that, let's say when I graduated high school, not well, graduated high school or even college, saying what I'm doing now, I would laugh at them and just say, "Yeah, right." That there's absolutely no way possible.
Hmm.
Um, I guess the biggest learning point for me, and I still learn this every day, and I still kind of struggle with it from here and there, is push yourself to try something new, even if it's a new food, if it's traveling to a new country, a new career, heck, a new boyfriend, or whatever it may be, or a new partner. Try something, because you never know if you're going to love it.
Right.
For me, I gave myself the opportunity, along with Andy's great support, to leave my career and try something new. But then I realized I could always go back. I could always go back in some other fashion if it didn't work out. And
Yes.
having that motivation that if there's one thing I'm really good at, it's motivation and determination. But arming yourself with that is so key, no matter what it is that's new. But it's frightening, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Some days, but
Mm-hmm.
I think for me to do it, that was a catalyst and a jumping off point for me to fly. And I thought, if I'm going to jump off this cliff willingly, I'm either going to totally sink and I have to go back, but owning up to it and saying, but that's okay. I at least tried it instead of wondering what's on the other side of that fence or what's on the other side
Yeah.
or I should have, could have, would have.
Right. And don't have any regrets.
No, not at all. The only regret I have is really, I don't want to say doing it sooner.
I knew you were going to say that.
I guess for me, learning some of the things that I've learned sooner, but that's not really a regret. That's kind of a wish.
Yeah.
I think for me, allowing yourself the opportunity to fail and be humble and say, okay, even if it's public. I mean, there are some big things that happened or things that got published and I went, whoopsie crap, I did that, or things that I said or things that are wrong or, again, feeling along the way. But as long as you own up to whatever that may be or a mistake or try to make it right or learn from it, I mean, that goes across the board with everything.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize, Melinda, and everybody else that's listening or watching, the key is whatever job you have or hobby or something like that, there's tons of transferable skills that you can take from one to the other.
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought that my near 20-year career as a commercial interior designer and project manager would fit my life right now as full-time words and cars and PR as well as it does. It's insane. It's like, oh, you've got the project management aspect, you've got the visual aspect of it, which now it's not drawing in AutoCAD or coming up with finishes for an office building, for instance, but it's in photography because now we have the eye for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You have the work ethic, you have so many different things. And when I jumped off the cliff in 2018, April 17th, not like I'm counting, I literally had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't realize that so many skills can cross over in such a unique and different way unless you try it.
Well, and that's really true of so many different occupations. The
Yeah.
things that we learn, it's funny, we talk about high school. I'm way older than you. When I was in high school, they had a work study program, and I worked at a weekly newspaper.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So that would have been in 1973 and 1974. Okay. And so then, I got married and I worked for a lawyer, office jobs. I always worked, office jobs, accounting, that kind of thing. And then I lived in my little town in Illinois, and the weekly newspaper in that town, not the one I had worked at in high school, a different one. The weekly newspaper in that town was basically going under. It didn't have anybody that was really involved in the community that much, running it. And somebody from 2.5 hours away bought the newspaper, thought his son would maybe move there and take over, which never happened. But in the meantime, hired me. And I ran the weekly newspaper there and eventually bought it.
Wow.
For 10 years.
Oh, that's awesome. I never knew that. I don't think I ever
Well,
knew
now,
that.
who would have ever thought? I did it in high school. And then, let's see, 20 years later, I'm I own a newspaper. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, you never know.
And in between, I had learned accounting and
Oh,
taxes and all kinds of things at the jobs that I had done.
Yeah.
So when I had my own business, which I've worked for people and I've always kind of had a side something going on, all those things come together and you're like, wow, I would have never known how to do this had I not done that.
Yep, exactly. It's the pathway of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I commend you for that because you took a leap. You tried something and you were like, all right, let's do this. Let's see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Because you did that, you're now here talking with me, for instance.
Yes, because when I started Women's Motorsports Network and the International Women's Motorsports Association,
Hmm.
it was an online magazine because I knew how to write interest stories of interest. I knew how to put ads together and design and do
Right.
all of that. And so that was the natural step for me, was to do the magazine.
Yeah.
And then I was a guest on a podcast for several weeks. They had me interview someone on their show. And then they finally said, you know what? You should have your own show. And I was thinking, it's really not any different than interviewing someone to write their story in the newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's actually way more fun to do a podcast than it
Right.
is to write the story, because you really feel like you get to know the person,
Right.
especially with technology now where we can do StreamYard or Zoom or whatever.
Right.
So all those things evolve, and you look back. I'm 16. I just turned 69. So I
Oh,
look back to, I graduated 50 years ago, and all the things that I've done that led me to this.
hmm.
And same with you. It's like, oh, I learned how to do that at that job. I can use that for this job.
Right. Right. And that's so interesting to learn all of that. And you're a perfect example of taking one thing and building upon it for the next and the next and the next thing.
Hmm.
And for me, I feel the same way. I guess I I didn't want to say I fell into this. Well, maybe I fell off the cliff and fell into this, but I'm pursuing my hobby. I've made it my profession, and I'm still having fun at it.
Right.
And I'm finding different things to do, unique ways and new ways of figuring out where we want to go, and then being able to write about it or talk about it on podcasts like with yourself. So many different things,
Hmm.
but it keeps me interested. It keeps me excited. It keeps me motivated. Um, and again, like I said, when I fail, it's not if, when I fail or when I don't get the gig or when I lose out on that, or there's so many emails that I send out that are just no answers. That's the new no, I feel.
Yes, it is.
Just have to stay surgical. Like Andy's dad was an excellent salesman, and he always just said, take the emotion out of it, stay
Yeah.
surgical, and just do whatever you need to do with the task at hand.
Don't be tied to the outcome, for one thing.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's really not personal 99% of the time.
Right.
But um
And that's hard. That's hard to
it
do
is
because,
hard.
especially as women,
Yes.
people that are very passionate, no matter what sex or however you identify. Um, that's a really can be a very tough thing to do, because
Hmm.
especially if you're so passionate, you want whatever job or you want whatever outlet,
Yeah.
publication to see you, or you want this opportunity and it doesn't happen, or like, we pitch manufacturers for different things and it doesn't happen. you know, to not feel that way, or was it me, or this or that, or just, be so upset or something, you know, that's tough.
It's
Can be
tough.
tough.
But the upside of what you do and what I do is it's never the same day after day after day.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
today I try to record more than one podcast on a day. So I have podcast days
Cool.
that I record. So you're my second recording today. And then
Awesome.
I have two more later, and then I'll spread them out. But every one of you has a different story.
Hmm.
So yes, I'm recording and I'm interviewing and I'm talking, but we haven't talked about anything that the other gal and I talked about.
Interesting.
It's completely different
Yeah.
because you're different. What you do is different, and so it's always something new, and I love that about it. I love
Yeah.
hearing the stories that I get from all the women that I interview. Yeah,
Well, I appreciate your podcast because you highlight all of those champion moments, those challenging moments, and in those that are caught in between.
yeah, and it's Mercedes. It's not people that are famous. Nine, and most of the people nobody's ever heard of unless they race at your track,
Right.
but they have great stories.
Yeah. And
And
I love, yeah, I completely agree.
yeah,
Just to add to that, when I have a chance to interview people, a lot of my subjects are people that nobody knows,
yeah,
or that are doing really killer trip or this or that or whatever it may be, or just really have pushed boundaries beyond their capability and become successful at what it is. So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, that Times story, the New York Times story, I mean, one lady had an 11th grade education level, and she got divorced. She had multiple kids. She ended up on welfare and food stamps up in Canada to try to make her life work. And then she started selling gift baskets and like baked goods and things like that out of her home. 20 years later, they decided to make it they added coffee to it and made it a full-time business with her new husband and help from her son that actually used to work at Starbucks, and really got successful.
Yeah.
And it's, you never know where you might be able to go, no matter if nobody's heard from you. Or no,
Right.
not heard from you, sorry, heard of you, I
Of
should
you.
say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Try.
Yeah. So let's talk about Rebel Rally and some of the, like, you went to a couple rallies and you
Mhm.
still do that.
Yeah. So Rebel Rally is an all women's traditional navigation off road competition. It's usually held in October every year, and I've done it 4 times, and 3 of them with different automotive manufacturers. It's a map and compass based desert competition, essentially. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so my awesome navigator, Emily Winslow, she was my navigator for the last uh, three competitions. So the first one that we did together, which was my second rally,
Mm-hmm.
Rebel Rally, that was partnered with Volkswagen of America, and we were the first ever all-wheel drive crossover that was a full EV, so full all-electric vehicle to do it, and that was way back in
Oh.
2021. So I successfully brought that girl across the finish line at stock height, mind you. The vehicle was not lifted, but I brought her across the finish line. No mechanical issues, no running out of charge, no nothing. So
I was going to ask you, how did you charge when you were out in the wilderness?
yeah, the desert is not kind to charge,
No.
like, to basically, when you have rocks or silt or elevation. I mean, all those things work against an EV. So I had to be very careful, and Emily too, as a team, to make sure you didn't run out of charge, because you can't just add in fuel and just go back. You have to get towed back. There's no way to
Yeah.
charge. They had base camp at the end of each night. They did have a company by the name of Renewable Innovations had a setup where they had semi trucks and they were able to charge.
Okay.
So, as long as you got back, and on the really long days, they did have a drop point where they had a tanker truck full of fuel, whether it's, diesel, they had, I think, canisters of, because not many people ran diesels, but a tanker truck full of actual gasoline, then a charging unit for us, which was a semi truck. And then in midday drops, we'd have that opportunity to fuel up
Okay.
if we needed it, or charge up if we needed it, which we always took it if that was there.
Oh yeah. I better safe than sorry, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so that was in 2021. And then in 2022, we partnered with Jeep. So we drove a plug-in hybrid. So that was a really neat and interesting experience. So that was the Rubicon 4xe
Okay.
that you may be familiar with. And
Yeah.
then 2023, we partnered with Honda, and we did their Pilot Trail Sport. So, and that was
Okay.
a full gasoline. So it's interesting because I didn't realize, actually, I think I was writing, I can't remember what article I was writing, but after doing that self reflection, I realized after working with Honda that we became the first and maybe still only team to have run all 3 power plants. So we did a full EV, and then we
Yeah.
did a plug in hybrid, and then we did an ICE engine or internal combustion engine. So that was
Is
pretty
it,
cool to know
that's
that.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you partner with a manufacturer,
Mhm.
what is why do they want to do that?
So some manufacturers like to partner with journalist teams, because the journalists can really put a vehicle through its actual paces instead of having a fleet car for a week and then you drive it on the highway or something. I
Yeah.
mean, they'll really want to push the limits. Like for instance, with Honda and their Trail Sports series, they're more ruggedized. They have better suspension. They've got different tires. They have better clearance, all that type of thing as far as ground clearance, so that it can be more capable off pavement.
Okay.
Same with Jeep. They want to have the exposure as well in earned media. What that means is in different magazines or different
Yeah.
publications, podcasts, all that stuff that's not bought media, essentially.
Mhm.
So it's a real life, true evaluation. And so we've had a chance to do that several times. along with my husband. We've done that a few times too with the Alcan 5000 rally. In 2022, which was our second year doing it, we did the summer rally. We partnered with Subaru of America and Subaru Motorsports. So we did that. And then in 2024, actually earlier in 2024, we did it with Ineos Automotive in their brand new Grenadier 4x4. First time auto manufacturer, first time anything. And we actually won our class, which was the biggest class,
Cool.
10th overall, 36 teams. So it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
It was the Alcan 5000 rally is a 10-day, 5,000-mile rally that starts in Kirkland, Washington, which is just outside of Seattle. And each time that the rally happens, it can change the route. But we went as far north as, Tuktoyaktuk in 2020 in the Arctic Ocean in winter, mind you, with our personal vehicle when we first did it. So it's insane. If you think about that, 10 days, 5,000 miles, and especially with the Ineos Grenadier, it was another winter competition. And that vehicle did so well. We had Michelin X Ice snow tires, so dedicated snow tires on there, and they didn't flinch once. And we went through blizzards. We did ice racing with it, ice roads. We drove with it, and it just did great.
Wow. What a commercial for them.
Yeah, it's a risk because sometimes they might, a vehicle might break down. Sometimes you might have an issue, or you might, have loose fuses, and all of a sudden your dash, lights up like a Christmas tree or things like that. So, it goes both ways. It could be great, but then also there could be challenges, or there may be things under competition that we realize is really not great or needs to be addressed. But then we realize, okay, we're in a really extreme situation because we're putting this car through 1,500 miles and 8 days of competition with the Rebelle Rally, for instance, and 90% of it's off-road. Well, the average consumer going to do that with an EV?
No.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe not in our lifetime regularly, So yeah, it's very interesting. And not only do I photograph it along the way because I have my own camera gear, so I'm a photographer as well. Most of my articles all have my own photography in it, first and foremost. So not only am I a journalist, I'm also a driver or navigator when my husband and myself partner together. And then I'm also a photographer. So journalist, driver or navigator, and then, a photographer. So we play 3 roles.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work.
It is, but I cannot even imagine when it's it can be hot, it can be cold, it can be extreme, all of that. But at the end, you look back and you're like, wow, that was really cool what I just did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and there can be moments too that you look back and you're like, oh my God, if I just stayed straight instead of turned right, we could have possibly podiumed.
Yeah.
Which, but that took us out of, the competition. I mean, we finished, I don't think we finished last at that point, but, we really fell because, it just turned wrong in one navigational rally. And if the next direction is several miles down the road, which is what our crappy chance was, and you didn't catch it in time, and then, you time out and but things like that happen. It's all part of rallying. It's all part of racing.
Right.
Gotta accept it and learn for the next year, which we did. And then we won our class. So.
Yeah. Very, very cool. I could just sit and listen to you tell stories about those rallies because I just think they're so fun. But I don't want to be. So when my husband and I travel, he drives and I navigate, and I'm a good navigator, but I don't want to navigate that because that's too stressful. No thanks.
Yeah. Every rally, every competition's different. And there a lot of them, what we do, it's called TSD rallying, or time, speed, distance rallies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For those of you that aren't familiar with what that means, it's essentially an accuracy competition or a competition based on precision. So the road rally or the off-road rally, depending what it is, will give you a route book. And then the route book will end up having specific directions and a specific timeout that your car needs to leave. So quick example, if we're the rally starts at 8:00, we're car 12, our car timeout is 8:12 because you add each car number to each minute. Then under regularity, so when you're actually doing the competition part of it, let's say you need to go 0.25 miles at 28 miles an hour and then turn left on Smith Street. So you have to so the driver has to carry that constant speed as best as they can and then turn whatever the direction was. Then let's say increase to 52 miles an hour for 5.29 miles and then turn right on Johnson or, whatever the next direction may be. Then you have to account for slowing down. You have to account for any stop signs, any cars, any cows, which happened, sheep, trains, all that type of stuff. So you can't be early. You can't be late. The goal is to be perfectly on time.
Yeah.
So
hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And no matter how good of a friend you are or a wife or husband or something like that, there is screaming in the car.
I'm sure.
Go left, or like, he'll tell me, oh no, it's the wrong direction, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, things can get pretty heated in there, but for us, it marries time, speed, distance, TSD rallying marries so much that we love. It's traveling, it's being together, it's meeting other teams that are like-minded gearheads, the cars, the vehicles, and a new experience, and working your brain and just really the challenge. And anybody could do it. Literally, there are great father and son teams, mother and daughter, grandfather and child, and husband, wife. A lot of people say don't do it with a husband and wife, but we can prove you wrong.
Yeah.
You won't be married afterwards, but sometimes you might not.
Well, I mean, but I think a husband and wife, you do understand that if you're yelling at each other, it's not permanent.
That's the goal. Yes.
Yeah. So,
it'll work. Friends said tongue in cheek, but they might have been serious, said, don't do it. If you guys want to start getting into this, don't do it. You're going to hate each other. You're going to not end up married and blah, blah, blah. And, I do know some teams that are partners that are husband and wife that do it successfully. But again, it's going back to the stay surgical, right? Keep the emotion out of it, which doesn't really work well when you're under competition, but try to stay surgical and have fun. Even though it's competition, Andy and I, when we compete together, I'm the navigator. And, I actually have some examples of route book for those that are, that are watching. So this is, for instance, the, stick. This is the Baltic Sea Circle Rally that we did. This was the overseas one we did. Oops, here we go.
Yeah.
That was 9 countries, 16 days all around the Baltic Sea. So, and this one was different because it wasn't a precision rally. It was just a suggested route, but it was a fun rally in the fact that you had all these different challenges and games and things that you needed to do and sites you needed to see, take a photo, send it in, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It turned you loose and said, okay, you can't have GPS on. You can't have navigation, right? So no GPS, no navigation, that type of thing. It's a paper map on back roads. So imagine 9 countries, 16 days, and we ended up being the only EV for that event and the first non-Euro, so non-European team to successfully or do the rally, but successfully finish the rally in an EV.
Wow.
And we talked to Volkswagen, and then we talked to Volkswagen of Germany, and they loaned us a new ID Buzz. So the new Volkswagen bus, essentially, for that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it was an early spec, so early specification, German market version. So it was the short wheelbase version and a much smaller battery pack than what we are getting in North America. So that was very interesting. We didn't even know that part until we finished the rally.
Gosh.
Research, and we're like, boy, okay, what's the battery size and this and that, whatever. And we didn't realize that was an early market. Midway through, they bumped up, I think they added like almost 60 horsepower to, or Förderstärke, as they say in Germany, power and a different battery pack midway through in 2024 in Germany.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was interesting. We were able to camp in it, which was great, but we had to find our own camping or find our own hotel or find Airbnb. All of that was just, you didn't have anything with it. So each competition is totally different.
Yeah, it is. I love listening. I've interviewed several people that have done different kinds of rallies, and I just love, I think it sounds fun, but I just want to ride in the back seat and enjoy it. I don't want to be the navigator or the driver.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you. I mean, there are times where, my voice is almost gone because just so much talking.
Yeah.
With the Alcan 5000 rally, which I have that book too. They put it in a binder this year.
Nice.
This one was in February and it ended March 1st. And that one typically, let me show you, they usually had spiral bound it. You can't really see it very easily here, but that
Oh
one's like
yeah.
4 inch thick. But that's
Wow.
5,000 miles. And in winter, especially, it's all ice and snow. And in
Yeah.
summer, there can be 900 miles to 1,500 miles plus of gravel, dirt and gravel, and really bad roads. So, if you're talking constantly as a navigator,
Ah, sucking
pulling,
in all that dirt and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
then you eat along the road, and you have like peanut butter packs, or pieces of cheese, or just things that are like, okay, eat, and we'll have a hydro flask, not
Hmm.
no camelback, sorry, not hydro flask, a camelback that's full of water behind each of our seats, and then we have the little
Straw
cord
thing.
right here, so we could just sit there and sip. So instead of like
Hmm.
having to monkey with opening a container and then handing it over, and then it might fall over all over,
Right.
if it's opened, and ruining the book or whatnot, then we'll just do the camelbacks, and they've worked really well. I got that tip from another person a couple years ago.
Every time you go, you learn something new.
Oh, hands down, hands down. And for
Hmm.
me, that is the vitality of life.
Yeah.
So, but
Wow.
I wasn't that type of person before. It's really interesting. I always had to have things a certain way, get my hair cut a certain way, this and that, the same person. I just was very, very regimented when I was much younger. And for now, it's like, here goes back. Or you
Yeah.
could do this, or you could do that. I mean,
I'm
it's,
the person that I need to know the plan.
yeah.
So I mean, I can be flexible, obviously, but I like to know the plan if I can. Like, we're going to drive this far and we're going to stay at this hotel. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I very much was that way. And I still, to some degree, am that way. We learned with a couple of our international trips, you can have the best intentions, especially if you're camping, to get to one specific spot. You want to camp overnight here. When we did that in New Zealand, we rented a camper van, and we did almost tip to tail on both islands. And none of our things that we thought we really wanted to do, we could get to, or we found other things that we really wanted to stop at. And before you knew it, our schedule was completely out of whack. But
Hmm.
we kind of tried to go with the flow.
Right.
Iceland, same way. I created this whole document, and it was on the fly, because we booked that flight very late. We thought, okay, let's just go ahead and plan some stuff and make it happen. And again, it was like, oh my gosh, look at this glacier. I had no idea this was even here. And you stop and you don't even know where you are. And before you know it, there's no way you can drive all the way down to where your camp spot wanted to be. And
Yeah.
so over the years, I've learned, and it's very difficult, because I tend to be a very much of a manager, project management part of me, or manager part of me in it. But I've learned to kind of lessen the need to have things perfectly booked, know where I'm at, this and this and this, and just go with the flow a little bit more. And
Hmm.
that's still hard for me to even say that, because that's
Yeah.
not my personality, but it works. It just works.
And
And
it's
it
a different
doesn't work.
situation than living at home. It's a whole different, it's a whole different element. And so how you are and what you do there is totally different than how you are and what you do at home.
Mhm.
And so it's just very interesting to listen to and to hear your experiences. I knew we were going to talk easily because you just have so much to share, and I just love listening to it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate being on the show. And I think for me, if anybody can take one bit of learning or advice, or whatever you want to call it, just one section of this, it's just try something new and put yourself
Hmm.
out there. It sounds so cliche, but, oh, go, everybody starts from somewhere type of thing, but that's actually true. And
Yeah.
I never used to be that person. I really was like, oh no, I can't try salsa, ugh, or whatever it may be, Tabasco sauce or something. Um, but you can always go back. You can
Yeah.
try, you can try something and be like, oh, I don't like it. Okay. Or try a new career if it's something as crazy as what I did, or try a new place, visit a new place, go
Yeah.
to Mexico. I mean, you know, we're
Exactly.
we're fast on our way now to finishing all 50 states before I turn 50, which is nuts.
Oh, how fun is that?
Yeah, we literally just came back from New Orleans. From Louisiana was my 49th state, and now they're being dumped on with snow, which is crazy. But
Yeah.
Hawaii is our last. So
Oh,
go out there, travel, try new things, because you never know if you're going to love it.
right. You might end up moving somewhere. You're just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is where I want to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you
Well,
just,
don't come to Michigan today because it's minus 12 or something. I don't know.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah, I think I don't know what's happening here where we live in Oregon, because it's sunny. It's been sunny. I don't know. The north side of my nose is starting to lose its moss. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. We haven't had a lot of sun in and out. Yesterday or the day before was sunny, but it's very cold. We're in that cold snap that's going across the
yeah.
country. So, yeah.
Yeah, as being from Wisconsin, I'm very, very well versed with that, and of course,
Yeah.
rallying in the Arctic in the winter, it's the buy once cry once type of thing, where we bought, all the down, like the down jackets, the big huge
Yeah.
boots that look funny, but they're like rated a -40, and I have a pair of down pants, and I look like the Michelin Man when I wear them, but I don't care because
No,
they're warm. But I never had that back in Wisconsin,
no.
but you
It
know.
doesn't, and it doesn't really last real long, but you just stay home if you can. So,
Right. Yep. Yep. So,
well, is there anything else you would like to share before we hang up, Mercedes?
if people would like to follow our adventures, you can
Yes.
feel free. Andy and I, my husband Andy and I, have our own automotive brand and outlet and social media that's called Crankshaft Culture.
Yep.
So you can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. We've got a great community on Facebook too. You can ask to join all different kinds of gearheads. We don't care
Yep.
what gearhead you are, or if you like cars, you want to learn about cars. Feel free to ask to join. We've got, I think, about 1,100 or so members, all sorts of stuff. And we've got two mantras with that. And we're all united by horsepower or watts, and every vehicle is an adventure.
Yeah.
So, and I think we just started Blue Sky accounts too. So,
Okay.
yeah, so you can
Very
follow us
cool.
there. But yeah, other than that, you can type in my name, and I probably light up like a Christmas tree on Google. I haven't done that,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you can find bylines that
And
I've written if you do a Google search.
yeah.
Same with Andy as well. So he's a talented, award-winning journalist as well, and yeah, we just get out there and we do different things, and stay tuned because 2025 will be a wild ride.
It will. And I encourage people to Google you and check out some of your other articles because I've read some of them and they're very good, obviously, or they wouldn't be in the New York Times and a lot of other, you know, a lot of other well-known publications. But yeah, it's not just about cars,
No,
but it's good reading. It's just good reading. That's all there is to it. So
I
um
appreciate that. I think,
yeah.
you know, one of the things that I choose to write about is how some of the challenges we've overcome, and where that puts us.
Hmm.
I'm not all glitz and glamour and this is all great and this and that, whatever. I talk about the real life of, what we're facing, what we did, what went wrong, and all that
Yeah,
type of thing. So there's a lot of challenge and a lot of long hours behind computers when we're not out gallivanting around doing a rally, for instance. But um,
absolutely.
there's a lot of passion work that
Yeah.
happens behind the scenes, and a lot of non-billable hours. But
Yeah.
um, so I hope that some of the articles, if people choose to read or look or watch, that translates through. Because again,
Yeah.
I never thought in a million years I'd be doing what I'd be doing. But you
Hmm.
just never know unless you try.
You
Kind of
never know.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Mercedes. I really appreciate it. And I'll keep following what you're doing because I kind of keep track of if you're at a rally or you go somewhere and you're good about sharing what you're doing. So I
no, I
appreciate that.
appreciate it, and thanks so much for having me on the show again. It's been too long. We need to
It
not
has been
have to
too
have this.
long. Yeah. And we need to stay in touch a little better.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's been wonderful being back on the show, and I love what you are doing, and just
Thank
hats off
you.
for such a great podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you have a good rest of the week.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having me on again.
You're welcome.
All right, take care.
That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.